So, I was asked a pretty decent question by my hacker, I guess. Aren't you mad? The first time someone steals something from you, you're mad. The second time, you're furious. And probably all the way up to the fifth time. By the fifth time, you literally want to strangle someone in their sleep. The 24th or 25th time it happens, you become a little more relaxed about it. You start kind of just showing the public what's going on and kind of explaining things. And it's said that there's a law that if you create something while you're working for somebody, that's their property. That's exactly why we abolished slavery. Let's be honest about it. Getting credit for someone else's work is kind of like slavery a little bit. And that only pertains to if it has to do with something that you're working on at work. If it's something that you made at home, that you talked about with people at work, it's not theirs. Everything I've ever done, I've done in the privacy of, my parents' home, my bedroom. So when I come up with ideas like that, it's usually because I'm sitting around with nothing to do, or I'm trying to find something to do, and it's usually when I'm unemployed. Kind of like my beef jerky recipe. I actually came up with that before I went to work for Sonic. And they are trying to, basically what people are trying to tell you is that they can use that any way they like. Basically, they can say, well, since you work for so-and-so right now, the idea that you came up with before you came to work for this person is theirs. It's not true. The law actually states that it's while you're on duty, and if it is, in fact, the intellectual property of the said company or corporation. It is not if you just have a idea while you're sitting at home and you work for so-and-so. It is if it directly pertains to something that the company is working on. So obviously when you're trimming trees, we're not worried about flying cars. So that's a no. Obviously Sonic is not worried about beef jerky. So that's a no. I mean, I can go on and on and on with the list of reasons why it's not true. That pertains to, like, if someone's working on a vaccine like they're doing now, someone's working for a company that's working on a vaccine, and they come up with a vaccine. That belongs to that company because they're getting paid to come up with that vaccine. That is to protect companies. That is not to be misconstrued as a reason for you to steal someone's shit. In fact, I've done a lot of research. I've been to libraries. Believe it or not, I do check out books. In fact, when I was in high school, I read up on a lot of legal books, which a lot of them are null and void now. The laws have changed so much since then that that is no longer what the law states. So it is always changing. You do always have to do your research on it. But the research I've done says that. It does not say that if someone comes up with something while they're working for you, that is your idea. There are very strict guidelines to it. It has to. The law actually does state that it does have to do with intellectual property that companies are paying someone to come up with. So if I'm dragging brush for a tree company or I'm flipping burgers for a restaurant, I'm not looking for a beef jerky recipe when I'm doing fast food, because beef jerky takes almost 9 hours to cook. So no, when you're working for Sonic, they are not paying you to come up with a beef jerky recipe. When you're working for a tree company, they're not paying you to come up with a flying car. So those things are false. These are people who look at the law and then try to twist it to fit their own needs, which I've ran into this before. I actually went to a company in St. Louis to drive when I was a truck driver, and they said that since I had used marijuana in years previous, that I had to finish years previous to getting my CDL, that I had to finish a rehabilitation services, that I was required to finish rehabilitational services in order to drive a truck, which wasn't true. I looked up the law that he was pertaining to, and he said he wrote the law, so he knows what it means. And if he wrote the law, it's very sad that he didn't say what he meant, or he just didn't know that I had just recently gotten my CDL. So one of the two is either miscommunication or it was just straight up hogwash. I honestly think it was a miscommunication, because the law does say what he said it says. It does say that if you fail a DOT drug test, you do have to finish rehabilitation services. I have never failed a DOT drug test. The law does not state that if you fail any drug test, you have to finish rehabilitational services before driving a truck. I have failed a drug test for marijuana use during a hospital stay. But what he said was false. And I don't think he was necessarily trying to misconstrue the law to fit his needs or to fit his hatred or anything like that. I think it was just an honest mistake that he did not know that I had just recently gotten my CDL and that I didn't have my CDL at the time. So things that you got to watch out for, because I actually called DOT after that confrontation, and they said, no, you do not have to finish rehabilitation services. You are fine. Go get a driving job and drive. You're fine. Exact words. So that's basically the down low. You know, this is not time 4 that they've done this. This is like number 23 or 24. So yes, the first 5 times they do it, you're pretty mad, you're pretty stained. About the 5th time, you're ready to strangle someone in their sleep. You don't, because you obviously know that's irresponsible. But yeah, about the 5th time, you feel like strangling someone in their sleep. About the 23rd or 24th time, you get to where I'm at right now, where it doesn't really faze you, it doesn't bother you. You just make your little videos, post them on YouTube, and move on with life. So hopefully this isn't quite being stolen yet. Hopefully I get to the patent office and they say, well, let's go ahead and start up and do this and do that. But no, this is not time 4 or 5. This is time like 23 or 24. Whoever thinks that this is the 4th or 5th time this has happened has obviously not been around me during my entire life. I can promise you, my parents can tell you, there's been at least 23 or 24 times where I've had a pretty good idea of something that could potentially, you know, that I could potentially make a decent living off of, stuff like that, that people have stolen. This is not time 3 or 4. This is time like 24. So, talk to you guys later.